What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League yet again. And I want to talk about the offline mode. Now, this is something that I think has almost completely dropped off the face of the earth, much kind of like the game, but there's always back and forth with the game, and there's really that kind of talk, right? Where it's like, is the game actually being played? Yada, yada. What I want to say in this video is I want to, again, kind of circle back to that offline mode, talk about the importance, especially, looking back, we can now say a couple different things about this game, right? And I think the increased importance to actually get this mode, and we'll go from there. This is actually a topic brought up to me for my live stream last Friday, so thank you. I think it was Scott who brought it up. I appreciate you saying it, and let's just get into it. So, we've known that they're going to do this, right? When it was announced and they say, okay, it's going to be an online-only thing, there was rightful criticism, including from yours truly right here. But, then they did the statement. They said, hey, we're looking at it, and we're going to be doing an offline mode, and it's going to come after the game comes out. And it's like, okay. Now, we can say the importance to it. Hopefully people would know the importance to it. But here's the thing, and actually it is, I think, important to talk about the importance of having an offline mode, because of where we're at now, compared to, okay, as you're leading into the game, really anything could happen. Like, maybe people predicted this kind of thing would happen to the game, right? But ultimately, you don't fully know, right? Game comes out, you don't know how it's going to do. Looking back now, you can say, okay, what is the importance of having an offline mode? Well, what was actually brought up in the live stream that we were talking about is how much longer does this game have left, right? For better or for worse, no matter your opinion, whether you love the game, whether you hate the game, it's totally cool. Honestly, this video is more about the preservation of the game, and which is, I think, good regardless if the game is a dumpster fire or if the game is outrageously good. The idea is to preserve the game, which is more important than any of the two sides or both sides combined. But that's really it. I just kind of spoiled the topic of this video. It's about preserving the game. Yes, the game comes out, and some people liked it. I would say most people didn't like it. The game, I feel like you can kind of say objectively, is not being played much, right? Like you can see the stats on Steam database, and yeah, they don't paint the full picture, and I understand that. In fact, there's more people I would absolutely assume that are playing it on console than are playing it on PC. Okay, I absolutely would agree to that. But when you have like 100 or less people playing it on PC, how many people do you have playing it on console? If you want to give them a couple thousand on both, Xbox and PlayStation, which is probably not correct, but let's just do it for fun, right? The game probably has between 3,000 to 5,000 people playing it daily, and maybe you can add 1,000 or subtract 1,000, right? It's a range. But okay, well, why is all of this stuff important? I just don't think the game is going to last very long. And, well, what does that mean? Well, number one, they would stop supporting it in the sense of new updates. Now, this is something we've talked about, in the past. How long does the game have in it? And can you actually tell the full story of what they want to tell? Again, for better or worse, you might have hated what they did with the story. You may like it and want to see it through. Doesn't matter. But how long do they actually have to tell that story? Well, the answer is probably not very long. The game probably doesn't have a lot of time left, and myself personally, I would be shocked if it made it past a year. So, there's always kind of been the talk of like, you get through season 4 or 5 of this, ongoing thing, and that would wrap up the story, and they've kind of planned for more than that. Maybe they wanted 10, 11, 12 seasons. Obviously, I guess it's not obvious, but I absolutely believe they're not going to get that, right? I don't think the game makes it past a year. But here's where we're going with this. Here's why the offline thing is so important. Okay, well, there is a difference between not supporting it, like not adding new seasons, that's one thing, versus shutting down the game. But to be honest, so there is a difference there, right? So let's just leave that there. But to be honest with you, I believe there would also be a fear of really the second thing happening as well. We've been speculating about the first thing. How long do they have to tell the story, right? But what about that second part? There are games, and I've covered like Knockout City, for example. Knockout City didn't even make it 2 years, and they shut down the whole thing. So, I think there's like dedicated things online that have tried to keep it alive, but, they've taken that thing offline. We've seen actually in the last maybe like 18 months, some big games, and now, yes, some of them are like 10 years old, whether it's multiplayer for Assassin's Creed or Dead Space multiplayer, Battlefield Bad Company 1, 2, and actually quite a few Battlefield games, right? Now, some of these games are older than others, but again, for every one of those, there on occasion is a Knockout City or other games that are maybe 2, 3, 4 years old that just don't, make it all that far. So that is where I guess I'm going with this for Suicide Squad. Now, to be anticlimactic. Will they get an offline mode out before the game is just completely shut down? Yes. I mean, if they don't, I would be stunned. At the same time, again, there would be a fear because it is WB, and they can even say things publicly and do something different behind the scenes. I am worried, and I also just do wonder generally what has been talked about, with Rocksteady. Like, I would love to know, and we're probably never going to know, but maybe in like 5-10 years, maybe we find out. What was the original plan? Like, how many people did they want to keep working on this game versus, say, moving on to a new project? How many seasons did they actually think? How long did they actually want it to, stay around? And then when the game came out and it just didn't do well, were there discussions and what actually happened? Like, were they told to move on from it? Which I believe most of them have moved on. I find it very hard to believe more than, say, 10 to 20% of the company is still working on Suicide Squad. That could be wrong, and I mean, I would love to be wrong, and you can let me know in the comments, but that's my belief as of right now, is it's a skeleton crew still working on Suicide Squad. Again, anticlimactic in the sense that if you give us an offline mode, totally, I don't really care what happens after that. That goes back against that game preservation side. I just don't want them to pull up the plug, not just on continuing seasons, but to pull the plug on saying, this just didn't work. And to be honest with you, again, because it's WB, I feel like they have that wild card in them. It wouldn't be a good wild card, but I feel like one day you could randomly wake up and they're all of a sudden announcing that, hey, due to just the worst possible, situation that could happen with this game, they're done. And I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm not talking about next week, but I'm saying maybe a few months down the line, maybe a year down the line, they say, you know what? We're just not going to do it. And as we talked about several times, and it's why it made people mad in the beginning, you pull this game, down, or you take this game down with no offline mode, you've just killed the entire game. And for my take on it, I have a third channel, a retrospective channel. I'm very big into it. I've put my money where my mouth is. I've bought thousands of dollars, at this point of old games. I need to see these games protected. Again, I don't care if they're terrible. I don't care if they're great. We need the Naughty Bears. If you guys remember that PS3 gem terrible game back in the day, we need those games. I don't care if they're some of the worst games of all time. I want them around in 20 years. And, yes, we're only sitting a few months after this game has come out, but they need that offline mode. So I'm just hoping they do it sooner rather than later. And I do get worried just because of the frequency of the seasons. I was hoping that they would happen faster, even though I kind of assumed it would be like a 3-4 month thing. I was hoping they could do it maybe a little bit quicker than that. I would imagine the game just didn't do very well. I imagine a lot of the staff has been pulled off the game, maybe even not voluntarily, right? So I guess my point is, are we still getting it? Like, can they come out one of these days, whether it's just to appeal to little old me and just say, hey, Alex, calm down. We're still going to do this thing. We promised you we were working on it. Well, we're still working on it. Because I do think there is a really weird, wacky world that I don't think is like highly probable. I don't think it has the highest probability in the world, but I think there is a world where they say, we canceled it. We're not doing it anymore. It's not worth the resources to sink into it. I could see that happening, right? Because that would take time, that would take effort, and maybe they just don't want to do it now, or maybe like WB told them, hey, screw off, you're not doing it anymore. So maybe that's possible, and I really hope it's not, because I want to see these games around, as I've said, multiple times now. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.